Okay. All right, Jeff, I think we're going to get started.
We're gonna go for it. I'm trying to see what's gonna pop up on this YouTube page.
Are you at the YouTube page?
I am. Oh, there, it's up.
Okay, so am I good? All right, so welcome to our CPCO webinar. I'm glad you can't see me, but I'm Mike and my friend Jeff is here. And you want to just mute that, Jeff? So we're here to talk about 3 Google tools: Google Forms, Gmail, and Calendar. And these are some things that we've used for a few years now and have had great success and have shared with others, and think that if you incorporate this in your everyday work, you'll see the advantages of it. So thanks for joining. As you see here at the bottom, there's a hashtag CPCO Google. You're more than welcome at any time to tweet something to that link. Jeff and I will stop and try and answer a few questions. And this thing is going to last about 45 minutes or so. The first part will go approximately 20. Jeff will do his piece for about 20, and in between we'll have time for questions. So again, my name is Mike Rasso. I'm Vice Principal in the Ottawa Catholic School Board. Jeff's the Principal in the Ottawa Catholic School Board. We've known each other for years and love sharing stuff. So our learning goals. These are our learning goals for the webinar. I'm not going to read them out. So here, as Catholic leaders, we would like to incorporate a little prayer. So I'm going to ask that people read this quietly to themselves, and then we'll move on to our next slide. What are you laughing at? I got a peanut gallery in the background here. Thank you. It's hard talking and listening to yourself.
No, and it's a full 60 seconds later, which matters when you think about the questions that are going to be asked.
Okay.
You got to wait for them.
So we want to make some links to our connections to the Catholic Leadership Framework. So here's our a couple links that we've taken from our framework that we hope tie in effectively to our presentation. So 3 questions that we want to ask: how are you using Google Docs in your school as an online learning tool? How much you use Google Forms, Gmail, and Calendar in your own practice to enhance school organization, communication, collaboration? And what will be some next steps for you in using Google Forms as a tool in your practice? And as I'm saying this, I think we need to get rid of this first line about Google Docs, because we're not really talking about Google Docs. So make a note of that.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Okay, so again, here's the hashtag CPCO Google. Join in whenever you want. So, why forms? It saves a lot of time, as I think we live in a world of email, and people come back to the computers after being out and about for an hour and see 30 emails. Some of them are more crucial than others, but if there's a way to minimize the number of emails you get and find a way to improve your own workflow, hopefully it gives you time to spend on other facets of your job and try and make this managerial aspect as efficient as possible. So we've been using forms for quite a few years in different aspects. One of the first things that we started doing in our schools quite a few years back was trying to find a way to determine early which students were struggling. So we're both high school administrators, and the school year starts, and then midterm report cards come out sometime in November. But that gap between September and November, you want to be able to try and find a way to identify which students are struggling. So what we did is we created a form, template, whatever you want to call it, letters of concern, letters of early intervention, progress reports, whatever you want to call it, lots of different names. And I'm just going to open up what the form looked like. So what you see here is the end result. So this was something I just made a copy of a few years back. So you'll see in here that teachers inputted a whole bunch of information on individual students based on questions that were asked. So rather than sending out an email and getting approximately 400 emails back, we created a form, and this is what the form looked like. So this form goes out to the staff. Teachers are required to put this information in each time for each student. So if they had 30 students that they were concerned about between all their classes, they would fill out this form. So some of it, as you see, are text, some are multiple choice. So the goal was to make it as efficient and easy to use as possible for the user. We then take these responses and merge them into a document, just like you would do in Microsoft, where you had a spreadsheet and in a Word document. You take them, and every category that was filled gets merged into a document for each kid, and from there these things get distributed to each student. Some people choose to give them to the students individually. Some schools mail them out, some schools email them out. So that's up to you. But the whole goal is that you've created a way of tracking a lot of students very simply and very easily. So rather than having 500 pieces of paper floating out there between teachers and admin, everything kind of comes into one document, and it's a big spreadsheet, and it's easy to keep track of stuff. So that's just kind of one way that we started using forms that a lot of people said, hey, I can start using this in my practice as well. And I think between all the schools now and our board, I think everybody is using this in some capacity to track students. So it's been very helpful. And again, as high school administrators, we have student success team meetings. So that information that comes into the form, we then share. You're able to share some of this information with whichever group of people that you want. So there's a share button, and I'm not going to get into the technical aspects of it, but the goal is, now that you've created this document, what are you going to do with it? So as a school success team, you meet and you make notes as to who's going to do what. So these are some notes that are kind of specific to the school. Everybody understands what each thing means, but you can kind of see here that each kid that was put in here now has some type of follow-up. So if you have a school of, say, 1,200 9 to 12 students, and you got 50 students that are identified, this is how you can kind of track that. So these are, again, one way of using it, and we just wanted to kind of give you a couple of other samples. So admin meetings, if you, this is more a document, but if you ever wanted to have a regular admin meeting, whether it be your leadership team meeting, whoever, you can kind of create a document, share that, and people have the ability to input suggestions ahead of the meeting so that the agenda is created collaboratively. Another very important piece is having input from different stakeholders, so your parent and student communities. So again, there's lots of different examples. One example that we did a few years ago at a school was we were looking for some feedback on the yearbook. So what format to kind of continue the yearbook with. So this was a form that we'd share with our parents. We'd throw it on our website so people had the ability to go to it and answer these questions. And we took it, and because of that feedback, we're able to make some adjustments and revisions to the way that we were going to do yearbook. So one thing I think that we're always looking to try and improve is staff meetings. And I know some teachers, when they go to a staff meeting, this is the way that they're feeling. So if you can find a way to get input following a staff meeting or going into a staff meeting, I think it's always a good idea. So if there was a topic that was discussed after the staff meeting is over, you can send out a link for staff to fill out quickly to get some feedback on that activity. So find a way to improve, or find a way, or find some items that they would want to discuss. And again, you can manipulate these forums, come up with whatever questions you want to that caters to your school and to whatever you're doing. And I threw this picture in here, obviously trying to be a little bit funny, but as well to let you know that you can make your forms a little fancier by putting some pictures in there. You can also put video in there. So when you get comfortable using forms, there's lots of ways to be even more creative. So I think at this point, I'm just going to go to the Twitter and see if Brian, because Brian right now is the only one who's going to be tweeting out, has added any questions. So some questions here. Can you have more than one editor on a Google form? Yep. You can share a form, just like you can share a document or a spreadsheet. So if you wanted to collaborate with somebody who's on the other end of the city on a form, you can have as many editors as you want. Are staff using Google Forms? Are staff using Google Forms and sharing with other teachers and students at your school? Yeah, and I think one thing, like everything, it takes time, but the more you use it and try and get it into a staff meeting or whatever, if you model it, then they're going to see that it has a purpose. But if you're just up there talking about it and never trying it out, you're not going to be able to convince too many people that it's the right way to go. Again, I throw in a couple of other samples in here. Textbook return. I'm not too sure what schools do, but at the end of the semester, at the end of the year, in terms of tracking items, but there's always lots of things going on at the end of the year. So you can create a track book, a textbook tracking system where teachers can input any information rather than putting things on a piece of paper. So we're just basically trying to get rid of paper and people writing things down and stuff getting lost, and creating ways of stuff being able to be shared and manipulated on a spreadsheet. So here's again a couple of other examples. People can go to them at any time and see them. If you're ordering dinner for a staff meeting, a good way of giving people input as to what they want, or taking orders. Okay, here's some classroom uses that people can use. I wanted to show you that you can not only can you share a form with a link, you can also share a form by using a QR code. So if you're a classroom teacher, you can just take the QR code, flash it somewhere on your classroom wall, take a piece of paper, tape it up to a pillar or whatever. Kids can go around with a smartphone and start with that. Staff as well. So just different ways of getting people to see Google Forms rather than always having to send a link or type something into the web browser. So again, let me go back to the hashtag. And no other questions at this point. Okay, so feel free to jump on in here, give us any feedback on some things that you learn, what you might have questions about, and you know, how much you use Google Forms to support your administrative practices and encourage staff sharing with and collaboration. And I think what we want to just, the message is, start small. And sometimes the tasks seem daunting and technology might, I don't do technology. Start small, get comfortable with it. There's lots of tutorials, lots of help online on how to use these products. And if you invest a little bit of time, I think you're going to see that the rewards multiply.
That would be included in that picture.
Is he?
All right. So at this point, Brian, why don't you unmute yourself and maybe give us a bit of feedback? Are you able to do that?
There's skin in there too, I think.
Yeah. You see that would be ankle.
Yeah, yeah. He looks the same. Todd.
Brian?
Hope he's not sleeping.
All right. Well,
You can take over here.
Brian, I'm not sure if you're out there or not, but I'll just jump in and we'll go right into it. So my part of the webinar is talking about the introduction to Gmail. And what I want you to understand is Gmail's not just another mail product. Gmail links up with Google Calendar, and it makes it a super functional way of organizing not just yourself, but your teams. As a principal, I need a way to communicate with not just my staff, but with specific teams, whether it's my leadership team or whether it's my administrators. To be able to link up through Gmail and through events is a pretty important thing for our productivity. So I'm just going to go into my calendar and I'm going to show you some different things, and I'll flip back and forth to the various topics. Excuse me. Except that now my calendar's not here. So hang on one second. Where did it go?
Not too sure. Just open up your inbox there.
Was that me?
Yeah. Should be you.
yeah. Just go to your calendar.
All right, sorry, Brian. When it comes time for the actual webinar, we'll have it in a separate tab, so there's none of this lag time. I need to go into my calendar. Now I'm wondering if when I open this, if I'm going to go into Mike's calendar. We'll see. Nope, we're good. We're good. Okay. So I want to make sure both my calendar and my inbox are both open, because I want to show you some of the tools that we have. The first thing I want to show you is the advanced search option of email. It's as you know, we get millions of emails and from different sources, and there's different ways to deal with that. One is to use the various label things that we have on the left. So if I select certain emails, then it's going to highlight them, and I can star them. And because I've done that, once I want to show, I can show just emails that are starred. So any emails that might be active, I can select just the ones. Sorry about that. I can select just the emails in my inbox that are starred, and then they appear. I'm going to do that one more time. Sorry. I don't know why it's doing that. Sorry. It's probably because they're the only ones that are starred. Let me start something further down. Just over here, something from Brian. And then when I select starred, it didn't do it. It's supposed to give me just the list of the starred ones. Anyway, moving on, because we can do that. One of the things I can do if I want to, the advanced search option is very important. So if I wanted to, I could find all emails from Brian Colson and Brian has 2 emails, so I could look up that email plus this email. I could find all the emails that Brian Colson has sent me with the word webinar. And it's not there. So I don't know why this is fighting me today. Sorry. Let me try just the one. Let me try that again. I'll try it with the word CPCO. And there we go. You can see there's a ton of emails from Brian. Some of them we've starred, some of them we haven't. But it's an easy way to find emails just from a specific person. If I wanted to, I can take those emails, and if I highlight this one here, for instance, I can do different things with it. I can make that email, I can mark it and create an event. And this is the part where it hooks up with my calendar. So if I take that email, and let's say I want to make an event over it, and I want to do something with it on the 22nd from 5 to 6, which is fine. And I want to have a meeting at my school on Draper Avenue. I can set that up, and the body of the email is there. And what I can do with that is I can add attachments, which might be agendas or might be minutes of a previous meeting, anything like that. And when I save that, and we'll come back to this because we're just doing kind of an example today, not the whole thing. Brian's outside my organization, which is fine. I can send that invitation. And what you'll see is that it appears on the 22nd. There's an invitation between 5 and 6 that appears on my calendar, and it will appear both in Brian's email as an invitation, and it'll appear on his calendar as well, which is very functional. Within that as well, I can go back to that and I can add a few more details which are significant. If I wanted to remind myself that that meeting is going to happen, I can ask for a pop-up 10 minutes before. I can add for another notification, could be 10 hours before. I can add another one that gives me, let's say, 2 days before. And that way, I know exactly when that meeting is going to happen, and on the day it will remind me of those things. I can add other guests to that meeting. Mike Raz was already invited to that, but if I wanted to add any other guests, I could just put their name down. I'll give an example just right now with my wife, who's also a teacher. I could invite her, and I could email guests, put a little note about the update. Hope you can make it. And I'm going to say don't send because my wife doesn't need that. But she's invited to that meeting as well. Just going to go back to my email again to talk about a few different things. Which is the tab with the presentation, Mike?
Right.
Oh, here. Okay.
There you go.
It's reloading. Is that because everything's open already?
Yeah, you might want to close a few things.
Sorry, Brian, it's reloading. When we have this on 2 computers, it's not going to be as bad. It'll be easier to move just from one thing to another. Come on. Here we go. All right. Other things that we can do in calendar is we can add a filter to a calendar. So let's say I'll find something in my calendar that's I'll look for anything from Travelzoo, for instance. Sometimes you get these email notifications, and what I can do is I can take that notification and I can create a filter on that. And within that filter, you'll see there's a million things you can do, but I'm trying to find things that are useful so that it doesn't clog up your inbox, because we're talking about being productive. So if I have anything coming from this Travelzoo company, what I can do is I can create a filter, and I might not want to get rid of it. Maybe someday I do want to go back to it, and if that was the case, then I would mark it as read. If I just don't want it ever, then I can mark it as spam. I can, if I think it's really important, I can always mark it as important. I can create a category for leisure, whatever it is that I want to do. In this case, I'm just going to have it marked as read, and it says also apply filter to matching conversations, and I do that. And now everything that has to do with that is going to be marked as read, so it's not going to appear in my inbox. But if I did want to do an advanced search, then I would get to it. The other thing I can do with an email, if I go back to my inbox, let's say I open this up and I think it's an important email, something that I want. I can, hang on, I lost my train of thought there. Oh, I want to add it to tasks. Oh, sorry. There's way too much open here right now. Add to to-do list. See, you've got a different thing up here.
You want to do?
Add it to tasks. But it's... Oh, there we go. Okay, so I've got this open, and let's say I want to add it to a task. I want to put it on my to-do list, and I want to sync that up with my calendar. So let's say this is something that I wanted to share with my staff. So maybe I say add it to tasks, and it's going to open up here. Now, once this is added to tasks, then I can do a lot more with it. What I can do is I can say, okay, I've got a staff meeting on February 23rd, let's say, and I'm going to say present to staff, and I have different lists, but in this case I'm just going to put it onto my list. All right, and then that should, so then I go back to my calendar. Just saving that last thing. Then I go back to my calendar, and I have a calendar that is called tasks. Right now it's not showing, but when I show that, you will see that the email and everything that was related to that appears in my task list. If I actually finish the meeting and I want to show that it's done, I can click on that, and it doesn't get rid of it, but it does do a strike through to show that I have in fact achieved that task. It also indicates that there is a related email attached to it, and if I were to click on that related email, it is going to appear, although now it's going to Mike's email. We're going to definitely have to use two computers for this. So I'm going to skip that. There is a related email to that, and it should pop open to my email, but because I'm on Mike's computer, it's gone to there. You can see I've got other things on my list. Don't forget to pick up board materials. But the other thing that's important is you can see that my task is also synced with my calendar. So the e-learning infographic email is here, and if I click on that, then it's going to tell me that, could use my spell check here, present, and it's going to tell me that I need to present this to staff on that day. When the staff meeting finishes, you can see it appears kind of everywhere, right? It appears in my email in my tasks, it appears in my calendar in my tasks, and it appears on the calendar date in my task. The other thing I want to show you is the right side chat in calendar, or in my email, sorry, which isn't appearing because I'm on Mike's, so that's not going to work. Or is this Mike's email? Is that why? Hang on one sec. There we go. I'm going to X out that tasks. So if you see on the right, what we have within the email, again, a pretty important tool for syncing, is I have a thing called right side chat. Now, right side chat, all of my main contacts, people who I talk to all the time, appear here. Brenda Wilson, for instance, is my superintendent. If I were to hover over that, that gives me the option to send her an email, gives me an option to open up a chat window. So instead of emailing back and forth, right within Google Mail, I can do a chat, or right from Google Mail, I can do a Google Hangout. And Brenda's pretty techie, so we actually do that all the time. If she sees that I'm on because the circle is green, then she will request a hangout, and it's a pretty quick way to talk without having to, to make a phone call or to leave what you're doing on your screen. And because you're doing a Google Hangout, you can share documents and make that very functional as well. The right-hand chat appears in, if you go into your, sorry, where's Labs appearing? It should be in the settings.
Settings.
Oh, sorry. If you go into the cog, which is always your settings, and then I go into settings from there, what you're going to find is that there's all of these things up here where we can set things up. And Labs is very good. The way Google works is everything is always in beta. It's always changing. There's always new things. And this is where you can do other stuff to upgrade your Gmail experience. So right side chat is this one here. And it's very important to me for my organization. You don't have to have it. You can enable it or you can disable it. And then the other thing is just to play with other things. If there's something else here, like Google Maps previews, that's kind of neat. If there's anything else here that you want, then you just enable it, and then it will forever appear into your mail. All right, so I'm just going to go back into the inbox. So we've covered a lot of these things, but I want to go into more things having to do with Google Calendar. So we're going to spend a little bit more time there. Within Google Calendar, I've showed you how you can add events using email, but there's obviously most of the functionality happens right within the Google Calendar itself. So if I just need to add a quick event, this red button up here can give me just a quick add. So let's say I've got a meeting with superintendent. Of course, it's not typing. We got to do this with better. There we go. Meeting with superintendent. I'm going to say add. And then it's going to send me to this page. All right. Now let's say I have that meeting on the 24th, and it's going to be from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. That's a long meeting, but that's what we're going to do. Then I can put that on there. If I wanted to, I could make it just an all-day thing, and then I don't have to worry about individual times. If it's a monthly meeting, I can repeat it, and it will give me an option to say from when to repeat it. The other thing I can do is I can find a time. So if, let's say I'm going to invite my co-presenter to this meeting, what'll happen when I do find a time is I can look at that date on the 24th, and I can see my calendar to see what's happening during that day. It looks like I'm available for this meeting, and it also looks like Mike's available for this meeting. If he wasn't available, then there would be something on his calendar showing busy, and then I'd have to choose a different time. But you can see as a system, if I open this up for all of my leadership team, so my department heads, my curriculum leaders, my vice principals, I can quickly find a time where we can actually meet. So that's a very useful thing. So it looks like that time is good.
Hey, Jeff, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get comfortable using all these features in Google Calendar? This person is not a tech person that's asking the question.
It didn't take a long time to get used to it. I think you have to be comfortable with just playing. The email was pretty easy because most emails kind of work the same way, but it's trying to find the it's messing around with the tabs at the top to see what else it can do. So it's kind of a little bit over time. I think immediately you could figure out the email, and then once you start clicking on those down chevrons, then you start trying stuff out and you realize how easy it is. The other thing is finding those YouTube videos or Google supports, and we give you the links for those later in the presentation, in order to actually learn how to do that stuff. And then you can amaze your friends because they'll be impressed with all the things that you know how to do.
Okay, and here's another good question. Can you send a notification about a scheduled meeting a few days before the event?
Send the invitation itself,
or even a reminder?
Sure, yeah, because if you send the email and you use those pop-up reminders, I'm pretty sure they get the pop-up reminders as well because they're sharing the same event.
Yeah.
What happens when you send an invitation? If I send an invitation to Mike on his calendar, he's going to get an email for that invitation, and it's going to say yes, no, or maybe whether or not he's gonna come. In addition, on his calendar itself, there'll be something automatically on that date in that time slot with the yes, no, or maybe option as well. And then once they've decided, then within that particular event, and I'll just, we just made that fake event on the 24th. I'll open up the meeting with superintendent. Once Mike indicates yes, he's going to go, this part here where it says yes, there's one, that was me because I created the meeting, and the other ones I'm just waiting to hear what Mike's going to say. If Mike clicks yes on his calendar or yes in the email, it's going to appear as 2 guests available. The pop-up notifications, as I mentioned before, are down here, and then the guests are going to get those pop-up notifications as well to remind them of the meeting. And again, in my email, I can ask them, please review the minutes from the previous meeting. I can add attachments. You can do a lot of different things. If you change any of the parameters, I decide, oh, you know what, this date's not going to work for me. I want to reschedule to the 25th. I'm going to email guests about that. I'm going to say new date. Didn't work for anyone. Says event information will be included in the message, and then I press send, and then that new date is going to be there as soon as I press save, and then it offers send updates to guests, and you want to send that, otherwise they're going to think the meeting's still on the first date. Then you say send, and now we've got the new date, and you could see the meeting with the superintendent has now been moved to the 25th. Now, everybody who shares that calendar, this is the collaborative piece, everybody who has that calendar, everybody who's been invited to that meeting now knows all those new updates. And you can imagine if it's a meeting with 10 or 15 people, if you did that all by email, you'd probably be 30 emails deep by the time you made even just that one little change. Other things involved with calendar is you can overlay all the calendars. If you look at my calendar, it looks a little bit crazy, but it's actually all very organized. There's my own individual calendar. My little girls basketball team, I coach a girls basketball team, grade 5, 6, they're on there. My administrators, we have a calendar that we share that the whole staff can't see. There's the internal staff calendar that we use as a school, so all of my teachers can input on that calendar, and those are things that only we can see, you know, our board-wide jeans day, or could be a staff TGIF that we don't necessarily want the community to know about. It's not really their business. There's a room change calendar, which is very useful for the school. And then down here, there's other calendars that I haven't created. Our facilities rentals calendar is something that I need to see as principal. Corey Pino is one of my vice principals. John Stewart's another one. I can overlay theirs. And then there's the St. Paul community calendar. So the community calendar is the one that everybody can see in the board. And that's very useful because we can update that and anybody on my staff can input onto that. So it's not always the office administrator's job to do that. What we do actually, which is important, is we always ask them to put it on the internal calendar first. That way we can kind of vet it before it goes out to the community. And then once it's on the internal, then one of the administrators, or sometimes if it's just something simple, my head office administrator will copy over to the different calendar.
Jeff,
Yes.
here's another good question.
All right.
So this person is just starting, their board is just starting with Google.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asked, what's the expectation from our board for administrators to use Google Calendar?
Well, I think the expectation in our board is that everybody uses Google Calendar and Google Mail. There's still a lot of administrators who still feel comfortable with paper. So they kind of are using a mixture of both. I don't think that's great because as much as it's comfortable to use your day planner, your paper day planner, the problem is only you can see it. Your VPs can't see it, your office administrator can't see it, your community can't see it, and you know, maybe that's what you want. But if you're really truly trying to create a collaborative environment, a productive environment, I think it's important that they do see it. Now you can be protective of that though, because what if you have a personal event on your calendar, you know, your yearly physical or something, you can just mark that as busy. You can take that, and at the bottom you can mark that visibility as busy, show me as busy during that time for that particular event, and then they just know you have a meeting. They don't know what it is specifically. So if you're thinking, well, I don't want everybody to know everything I'm doing, or it's my wife's birthday or whatever, it doesn't matter. You just mark it as busy, and that way they know that you're unavailable for that time. Because everybody's using it, it really works. Here's just another quick example of something important you can do. We have new pedagogies for deep learning. There's 3 people on the committee. There's me and my contemporary studies head and one of my teachers. They're all invited to this day. They're all they haven't answered their calendar yet, but I know that they know about it, so I'm not worried about that. But what I can do, so this appears on my calendar right now. If I wanted to, I could also copy that over to something like the St. Paul community, which doesn't make sense in this context, but if it was something that I wanted to, I would copy that over, and now it would appear on my calendar plus on our community calendar. So there's lots of opportunities like that. So we keep everybody in the loop on all of our events. Creating tasks to calendar. Okay, we talked about that. Within tasks, I showed you how you create a task from an email, but I can do the same thing right from here. If I want to add a task, so for example, set agenda for staff meeting as a reminder to myself. I can do it right from this page as well, and you get those same parameters. So if I say, okay, I need to do that on Saturday, and I'm going to do that on Sunday, February 21st. I can choose which list. I'll put it on my list. And then we're good to go. We go back to list, and there's my set agenda set for the 21st, and there's my task list. All right, so that's an important thing. Well, another thing I wanted to show you is the views, and one of them is actually not used that much, but it should be. If I want to jump right back to today, then I can. It goes, and then all the previous days are kind of shaded. Today's date is highlighted, and this little red line tells me exactly what time it is right now. I can also go to a daily view, which is really handy because a lot of the dates get compressed and you can't read them. But if I go daily view, I can. I can go weekly view, monthly view. I can do just a 4-day, which is kind of handy if you're doing a week at a glance and you want to show what's going on that week. And I can also do an agenda view. I really like the agenda view because it is very linear. And if I want to really keep track of what's going on, I can do that agenda view, and I can even do a screen share if I want to email just the week's activities. And I don't have to have all the calendars on there. If I just wanted the internal staff calendar, for instance, I can go to that right chevron and I can say display only this calendar. And so if you look, now I've got everything that matters to just the school. It doesn't have any of my things. So I could do a screen capture on that, and I could copy that to an email and send it out to staff to say this is what's going on for the week. So instead of typing that all up on your week at a glance or however it is communicating with your staff, that makes it really simple to do. I can also print that if I chose to. You can print just about everything from Google. And if I want, you know, when you print, it doesn't have to be a print. It can be a print as a PDF, and then we're good to go that way. I can go back to the other things I wanted to share. Explain visibility, explain find a time. One of the things on this slide that I want to show you is I put on the Google Calendar slide and the Google Mail slide a link to the actual Google Help. Now Google has great help online. So for any kind of topic, if you finish this seminar or anything else and you're saying, oh, I can't remember how to do that, you just go to their help and Google the specific thing, and then it'll give you suggestions as to how to fix it. And because it's Google's own site, it is always updated. And so I think that's as much as I wanted to share. We'll be a little tighter, obviously, when we do the webinar. But those are the kinds of things that we wanted to share and answer questions for. Mike's left the room, so I'm going to go on to the next slide. The other thing that's important to note about training for all things Google, there's a number of ways to do it. One of the ways, when I don't know something in technology, one of my first go-tos is to actually go to YouTube. And I'll do an advanced YouTube search. So when you do the advanced YouTube search, it'll be on the link, but essentially go to search, and on the right hand side there'll be an arrow for advanced search, and you want to search by date, so anything that's in the last month or year, because this stuff is uploaded all the time and you don't want old training. And I don't have time to watch 40-minute videos, so I choose short or medium length videos. And it should answer whatever question you have about just about anything tech you will find there. Mike's also indicated the Edu Training Center with Google. You can actually become Google certified. Support.google, and I've given you the specific ones for mail and for calendar. And TeacherTube as well is a teacher organized YouTube kind of engine where virtually any training tip you need to find, you'll find there as well. So that's useful. So a quick question for you while we're kind of wrapping things up. Do you see any new ways where Gmail could help you and your team with productivity? You probably knew about Gmail before this presentation, but did you know some of those things, especially the collaborative tools to make your team more productive? And what new things did you learn or may have questions about regarding Google Calendar as a productivity tool? If you have any of those questions, go to the hashtag CPCO Google, and you can ask those questions. And Mike and I will get back to you individually as well if you think of something after the seminar. I think what Brian wanted us to do is while people were getting a chance to do that hashtag, Mike, are there any ways that you and your staff use Calendar or Google Mail in productive ways that I didn't share?
I think, Jeff, like for my experience is that everybody's kind of at a different spot, and it's just continuing to share different ideas. It's I don't think a lot of people are comfortable sharing their Google Calendar because they don't understand the busy notification yet, but once they understand that, it's easy. But everybody's kind of at a different spot, especially depending how long they've been in administrative for. I find people who are newer to the role are much more willing to experiment as compared to some people who are just maybe a little bit more set. And this is what's worked for me. But when they take the dive, it seems to work well for them. And I don't know if that made any sense or I just rambled on too long.
I would agree with that. On an administrative level for my school, you do have to be a little bit disciplined about it to say that if there is a school event, that there is an expectation that you put it on the internal calendar. And sometimes people will send something out by email and it takes just an email to them saying, hey, don't forget to put it on the internal. And then they start getting used to it. And within 3 or 4 months, everybody was just doing it as part of their regular routine. And I think the reason why it worked was because people were finding it very functional for them. For when they wanted to run a field trip or do something, then they could see that, okay, that calendar date is terrible. All the grade 10s are out of the building, so I can't do that, or it's too close to the literacy test, or whatever it is. The calendar became a very useful tool for everybody's organization, whereas everybody's individual date planners never served that purpose. So once they realized the strength of it, then it really did take hold.
And I find if you don't give them that option, then if you want to say, if you like when you do your weekly update, if you just say give them the link for the calendar, then it forces them to check the calendar. Like if you don't tell them what specifically what's going on in email, rather than just saying check the calendar, there to find out what's going on.
The other thing that became commonplace was, I'll give you an example. If there's a grad meeting, before people would send an email out and say, anybody want to be involved with the grad meeting, or all the members of the grad committee, you know, we're going to have a meeting this time, can you make it? Instead of the email, they don't do that anymore. They just put it right on the calendar, and then they do the invitation from the calendar, so that it's one step for people to click the yes, no, maybe, and then everybody can see that everybody was available for that meeting, and it appears directly on everybody's calendar. So there's no missed calendar entries or somebody forgetting to make the note from their mail to their calendar. It's just automatically uploaded. So it's been very functional that way. Are there any other questions for us on?
I don't see any.
Nothing?
No.
Okay. So given that there's no questions, we'd like to thank everybody for paying attention to the webinar and contributing.
Thank you.
We will upload this presentation. It is uploaded at YouTube because it is a Hangout on Air. We encourage you to try all of those things. There's a lot more to learn with Hangouts and all kinds of different Google products. If you go to CPCO, hashtag CPCO tweet for updates, there's other professional learning opportunities at CPCO and on the website as well. Don't forget to check that out. Well, there's always great webinars and great opportunities with CPCO. We'd like to thank you for participating. And there will be a link to a feedback. What we'd like to know is if there's anything else that you do want to know, or if there's any future webinars or any other information that you need. And I thought there used to be a slide with our names at the end.
Yeah, we deleted that and moved it up to the beginning.
Oh, okay. All right. So then if you come back up to the beginning, we are your webinar facilitators, Mike Razzo and Jeff Edwards. And when we say contact us anytime, we really do mean it. Don't think that we're too busy. We're not too busy. We will find time to answer your questions.
We're not busy because we use calendar, forms, and Gmail.
Exactly. So if there's ever anything that you need, any questions you have, if we don't have them, we will direct you to the right place. But I bet you we can support you. And we're always open to doing Hangouts too and getting to know you a little bit better that way. All right. Thanks very much. We appreciate it.